Things 2 is out and the reviews have largely been positive. It falls into many trappings that most sequels tend to, but many fans will still enjoy it and even excuse the missteps for accurately mimicking the flaws of their favorite 80s sequels. Still, it does feel like the writing in the follow-up is noticeably weaker, and not exactly in a justifiable way. Consider, for example, how disjointed all of the plot threads are. You've got Nancy and Jonathan looking to get justice for Barb, you've got everything around Max with her volatile, underexplored relationship with her stepbrother Billy, or the underexplored impact on the friendship between Lucas and Dustin, you've got Dustin trying to contain the Dart problem, you've got Mike missing 11 while helping Hopper, Joyce, and Bob figure out how to help Will, which is the central plot, you've got Billy being a one-dimensional human baddie, and worst of all, you've got 11 completely off doing her own thing on a path of self-discovery that is totally removed from everything and everyone else in the season. Everything is so disconnected that it requires some bad writing and forced plot devices to bring everyone into the fold at the end. Billy showing up late to look for his sister is strange timing given that his entire plot thread has zero relevance to the central plot and action, more on that in a moment. Jonathan and Nancy show up to the lab almost in out of air, and I'm still a little fuzzy why they went there in the first place, more on that in a moment. Bob works his way into the picture to serve as a sudden catalyst for solutions, followed by a cheap death, more on that in a moment. And 11 is so segregated from everything else that they bring her in only by using a vision of her friends in peril, more on that in a moment. In sidebar, yes, I understand the whole 11 thing is an homage to The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke's storyline splits up from the main storyline, but the only way George Lucas could figure out how he could reconnect the threads was to give Luke a psychic vision of his friends in danger. I'm just saying, I don't exactly think we should be looking to mimic George Lucas's writing. It's not very good. The whole thing with Billy at the end is poorly timed and serves no real function. It highlights another issue with the second season. Pacing. On the most part, it's fine, but every once in a while you get these random moments that don't really matter much to the main plot, and it becomes disruptive. Here, Billy shows up in the middle of the big action, with the fate of the right side up, I guess? On the line. We've got our cast of heroes reunited and working together to save the day, and so now Billy shows up to fight Steve? This action is so comparatively meaningless that even seeing the newly minted Steve get beat up feels insignificant because literally the entire world is at stake. Even worse, the whole thing is a cascading domino set of irrelevant plot points. The Billy action at the end doesn't matter. It primarily serves to give a nice character moment for Max to stand up to her stepbrother. But Max as a character doesn't matter much either. She contributes nothing of real consequence to the group. Her primary function for a while was to potentially drive a wedge between Lucas and Dustin, but that gets so little attention. Plus, Lucas and Dustin wind up fighting more because of the Dart situation. So, Max is redundant here. Okay, you're saying, but who drives the car to get them to the tunnels to help save the day? Well, I mean, Steve? He's only unable to drive the car because Billy beat him up. So if you're keeping track, if Max isn't in the show, you still have Lucas and Dustin arguing because of Dart, and then at the end, you have Steve drive everyone because Billy is subsequently removed and doesn't beat him out of commission. But what about the nice moment where Max states her value to Mike, who has been unreasonably mean to her? Okay, fine, but Mike doesn't ever really apologize to her or say anything to affirm her value or recognize that he was being a dick. So that whole thing ends without a real conclusion anyway. Max does serve one function for the writers, though. A means to mock critics of the first season. When Lucas tells her the story of what's going on, she echoes those critics by humorously responding that that story is a bit derivative. Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you see what they're doing there? They're taking a shot at the critics who noted that Stranger Things was derivative of other movies from the 1980s. Now stop saying that about the show that goes on to spend a great deal of time paying homage to Ghostbusters or It or Aliens, please. It seems a bit silly for the Duffer Brothers to even jokingly chastise people for talking about how their show is too derivative when that is literally the entire premise of the show. So much of the fanfare is around how derivative it is of everyone's favorite movies. You don't really capitalize on nostalgia by being wholly original. It also gets a bit confusing when you look at the Jonathan-Nancy storyline, which pretty much seems to exist exclusively as a genuine response to critics of the Barb storyline in Season 1. This whole thread feels like a creator reaction to the fan hashtag Justice for Barb. Additionally, it seems to exist to correct a conclusion from Season 1 that left many fans dissatisfied, Nancy ending up with Steve. Many fans didn't like or understand that decision, so they fixed it. Basically, this plot line serves no function to the greater story, it only serves for fan service. As a result, it constantly disrupts the flow of the show. 11 fares the worst of all, being completely separated from everything. For being the breakout star of Season 1, she's been reduced to nothing more than this season's Deus Ex Machina plot device. She's off doing her own thing completely until the writers need someone with superpowers to come in and save the day at the end again. Okay, so maybe we needed to see her find herself a little bit. Have a Luke trying to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp on Dagobah moment. Wait, what was that about being annoyed by critics who said their show was too derivative? Maybe we did need all of that to prepare for the finale. Did it really need to be an hour-long episode, though? Episode 7 should be a polarizing one. First, it completely disrupts the flow of the plot and the action. Episode 6 ends with such an oh shit cliffhanger moment, with the main action just starting up, so naturally episode 7 should start somewhere else, and cut back to the central action exactly never during the hour. On top of that, episode 7 feels like a completely different show. At that point, we're almost 6 full hours removed from the introduction of that season, if you can even remember how it begins. I had totally forgotten, and I watched the whole thing in one day. Those characters have not been referred to ever again until this moment, and the whole thing feels like a cross between Heroes and a 90s comic from the UK. So it disrupts the main action, it comes out of nowhere, it's tonally very different, and the only thing that really matters is that Eleven learns to become slightly more powerful by moving a train car in a 2-minute sequence. And what about Bob? Despite being lovably goofy, he's part of a few small moments that actually do add up to a lot to highlight the poor writing of the season. First, there's the way he just waltzes into the buyer's household, sees all the drawings on the wall, has no awareness of any context or what the hell is going on, no knowledge of anything, and within minutes has figured out the entire puzzle. Second, he has one of the worst lines of dialogue in the entire show. I thought stuff like this only happened in movies or comics. He says as he starts to get filled into what's been going on with Will. If there's one thing writers really need to retire, it's the terrible, this isn't insert fiction, this is real life joke. Stranger Things 2 does this more than once. Apart from this one here, there's a moment earlier in the season where Mike shouts at his friends, this isn't D&D, this is real life. Do you get it? It's a television show, so it is like insert fiction, and it isn't real life. We're so meta. People love meta, right? Right? Do you guys like us? Writers, this line wasn't that clever the first time someone used it. Please just stop doing it. Third, it's hard to get around the fact that Bob was introduced specifically to be this year's Barb. I mean, he's a better character than Barb, because he's allowed to be, but it doesn't change the fact that his primary function here is to die. On the one hand, he did single-handedly solve this year's buyer's house puzzle, and without him they don't find and rescue Hopper. Plus, without him knowing basic, they can't escape the lab and stop the shadow monster from... Actually, what? I don't even remember what he was trying to do. Just destroy the right side up? By virtue of being the always affable Sean Astin, and by being generally a likable, kind, genuine goofball, we're supposed to like him. Yet we're also given moments to realize that Joyce shouldn't be with him. She should be with Hopper. So it's a strange mix of shock and relief when he finally dies. Oh yeah, sad. He was so nice, but now the path is cleared for Hopper and Joyce, so yay. No complications. But I want to talk about the death for a moment, because it's a very small series of events that is some pretty clumsy filmmaking that seems to be Season 2 in a microcosm. And yes, I know that this is entirely a minor thing, but I find it emblematic of the sloppy writing present throughout. Okay, so while Bob and Hopper are sneaking around the lab, trying to turn the power back on and use computers to escape, the two split up, but before they do, Hopper gives him a gun first. This serves to remind us of the true danger that they're in, and this is also the Duffer Brothers setting up Bob's untimely end. Later, when Bob leaves the computer room, they are very sure to focus on the gun which he has left behind on the table. This is the writing on the wall for Bob, of course, but it's also a reminder. We got the setup with Hopper giving him the gun, and we got the reminder with him leaving it behind. Now we just wait for the payoff. So, how do they kill off Bob? Like this. An attack from a creature off-screen jumping suddenly into the frame, catching both Bob and the viewers by surprise. In essence, they kill him in a way where the gun would not have made any difference. So what was the point of setting it up then? Did it just serve to set up the first psych-out moment just before the psych you bought our first psych-out moment? They use a lot of psych-out moments in the show. See, if you're gonna set up the gun, then very deliberately show him leaving it behind, you gotta have that pay off. I don't know, maybe have a moment where he's pushing the doors on the hall closed to keep the demodogs out, and then he reaches for the gun only to realize it's not there, and then they break down the door and tear into pieces. Or have him at least reach for his waistband and find the gun not there while they're on top of him. They were so eager to get to the death that they appear to have forgotten how they actually set it up in the first place. One of their idols that they reference frequently throughout the series, Steven Spielberg, knows how to do this. Let's take a look at almost the exact same situation in The Lost World Jurassic Park, which is actually better than everyone gives it credit for, but more on that on a later date. Richard Schiff's character talks about the gun while on the boat to the island, that's the setup. Then he tries to fire it during the scene with the Stegosauruses, but it fails to fire, and that's the reminder. And this all pays off when the T-Rexes are snapping at the car and he can't free the gun from the net it's stuck on, culminating in his death. And sure, it's a less potent moment because his character isn't as likable as Bob, but his death is structurally more sound. Say what you will about The Lost World Jurassic Park, it's better than people think it is. Or Steven Spielberg, it's complicated. This is handled a lot better in Spielberg's sequel. Spielberg also has another sort of similar moment in his best film, Jaws. Yes, it is, fight me. First, Quint uses the machete to cut the ropes free. The sequence ends with him slamming it into the side of the boat. Later, as he's sliding into the jaws of... well, Jaws... He manages to grab it from where he left it and starts hacking away. It doesn't do him any good, of course, but it lets him go down swinging. It doesn't save him, but the machete itself does come back for a final character moment. Edgar Wright loves doing stuff like this. Shaun of the Dead features a strict adherence to the Chekhov's gun principle in the most literal of fashions. They establish in the first act that there's a Winchester rifle in the pub, they bring it up in the second act as they argue again about whether or not it works, and then finally in the third act the loaded gun goes off. This is a slightly different situation than Bob's here, but I'm contractually obligated to talk about Edgar Wright at least once per video, so hey, here we are. He is my Lord and Savior. Again, I recognize that this is ultimately a small thing. It's just one of those moments that makes you wonder if maybe the Duffer Brothers are not as good at writing or filmmaking as Season 1 made them seem. And I get the argument that they were trying to mimic their favorite 80s sequels, which were also full of similar problems as well. However, I'm not sure that copying the worst aspects of Hollywood filmmaking makes for particularly good television. I think we need to rein in the nostalgia a little bit if it starts excusing poor writing. Okay, so this has been kind of long, and I realize that I've just been shitting on Stranger Things 2 for a while, but I just want to end by clarifying that I did still really enjoy it. I liked it. I liked the addition of Bob. I loved Paul Reiser's Dr. Owens and how he completely changed the way I viewed that organization. Hopper was top-notch. I really liked Lucas in the new season. The whole Steve-Dustin pairing was completely random, and they completely nailed it. Steve was something of a revelation. And as crazy as it might sound, the original score might have even been better than the first season. There's a lot to like about Season 2, and I still recommend it. It's just... it seemed like the writing was substantially weaker, and I think that the rose-tinted nostalgia glasses might make it hard for people to accept that criticism, and I'm worried that the show is just going to get worse as a result.